Okay, so there's a there's a small change in the title, and that is I'll be focusing specifically on the Advaita system. So why do we need God? One of the reasons we need God is because we need a first cause, and other reason that we need God is because there's a designer, there's a creator, there is a design in the world, and that design implies a designer. And therefore, I will continue my talk from this point. I will dive in straight into the Advaita theology. The phenomenal world emerges and sustains and dissolves through Brahman, the ultimate reality. Maya, inherent in Brahman, serves as a material cause of the empirical existence, enabling the world's manifestation. When Brahman associates with Maya, it becomes Ishwar, the universe's ruler. Maya projects duality where none truly exists. Maya is not the universe's true source, but merely assists Ishwar in creation. Avidya wills the unity of consciousness for individuals, but leaves Ishwar unaffected. Then Avidya, Ishwar recognizes the unity within the world's apparent diversity, integrating it into himself. Both Ishwar and Jeev are unreal, existing only within the empirical reality, not as the absolute truth. Then Ishwar is also an illusory entity in the Advaita domain, existing only within and he exists only in the empirical reality. He represents the Apara Brahman, that is the qualified Brahman, rather than the Para Brahman, which is the pure transcendental Brahman. Unlike the changeless and inactive Brahman, Ishwar governs the universe and understands all beings. He is like a magician who uses the power of Maya and in that sense, he is both the material and the efficient cause of creation. The difference between Ishwar and Jeev lies in their limiting adjuncts. Unlike Jeev, Ishwar is not diluted by Maya and he remains free from evil. Now, Brahman is what we call a passive witness or drashta matra, and Ishwar acts as the intermediary for creation and dissolution. So, Brahman in himself does not create the world or sustain the world. He needs Ishwar as an intermediary. Ishwar is limited by Maya, yet remains metaphysically identical to Brahman. While Ishwar is the object of nescience, that is avidya, Jeev is locus, meaning Jeev is unaffected by ignorance, whereas Ishwar is not. Now, there are two theories concerning the nature of God, concerning God, and those two theories differ on how they view Maya. The first set of theory is the Avachedvada, the theory of limitation, and the second set of theory is the Pratibimvada, the theory of reflection. In both the theories, Maya and Ishwar, Maya aids Ishwar in creation, sustenance, and dissolution. The key difference lies in whether Maya is merely an accessory, as the Avachedvadins believe, or is the material cause, as the Pratibimvadins. For the Avachedvadins, Maya is only an accessory to God, and while Ishwar has limitations, they do not affect his knowledge and he remains free from avidya. According to the Pratibimvad theory, Maya, influenced by Sattva, reflects pure consciousness and serves as a material cause. However, it neither obscures Ishvara's true nature nor generates the mind, that is the Antakara. Before moving on, I would like to put out some differences between Maya and Avidya. Abhay Dixit, while citing Vidyaran, he says that Maya and Avidya are distinct, as explained in the Vivek Prakarana of Panchdashi. Maya and Ishwar transform the Jeev, transform into five gross elements, that is the Panchikrit Mahabhut, forming the material world. Avidya residing in Jeev gives rise to the causal body, that is the Shukshma Sharir, and mind, which emerges from the subtle element, that is the Tanmatras. Ishwar and Jeev contribute to the formation of the Shukshma Sharir, or what is known as Ling Sharir, reflecting a synthesis of Sankhya and Advaita. Maya, like Prakriti, cannot be eradicated by self-knowledge alone, since it is rooted in Ishwar. Avidya, however, dissolves with the removal of ignorance, resulting in individual liberation, that is known as Jivan Mukti. Maya ends at universal liberation, which is termed as Sarva Mukti, when Ishwar realizes its illusory nature and reabsorbs into his own essence. Avidya dissolves with the individual jiva upon self-realization, but this does not remove Maya from the cosmic order. Now, Pratibimvadins believe that Ishwar is the material cause. According to Prakash Atman, the universe arises from Ishwar, who associated with Maya, perceives both universals and particulars. Akhandaran Muni, as he cites in his book, says that Abhay Dixit cites Akhandaran Muni's view. He says that Ishwar, that is Brahman with Maya, possesses omniscience. Pure attribute-free Nirgun Brahman cannot explain the diversity of phenomenal world. Shankara's perspective on this is that God is both the material and efficient cause, abhinna nimitt upadan karan of the universe. As the self of all beings, Ishwar governs existence, aligning with the vibrant school of Advaita. No, they also reject Jeev as the cause of the world because Jeev is mired in ignorance and lacks omniscience, making him incapable of the cause of creation. Consciousness, that is Chaitanya, is Vibhu, it is all pervasive and leaves no scope for Jeev to participate in creation. The Vibrant school also reject the Ek Jeevvad theory, the idea that a single Jeev causes the world. Instead, it attributes causality to Ishwar. Again, Prakash Atman and Sarvakya Atman, they say that Brihm Chaitanya or the prototype consciousness is the true nature of Ishwar in the Vibrant tradition. This means that Maya does not merely act as a qualifying adjunct but plays a deeper role in causality. Since Brahman is a substratum of Avidya, it must be the material cause of the empirical world of the Sansar. In contrast, Jeev serves as a material cause only for the dream world, that is the Swapna Sansar, representing a limited individual projection. Some Advaitins reject Ishwar as a material cause of the Antakaran, that is the mind, asserting that Avidya alone residing in the genes is responsible for its formation. Shankar Prakash Atman assert that Antakaran is superimposed on the Jeev and not on the Ishwar. Since superimposition requires a substratum, that is Adhishthan, Avidya residing in the Jeev is considered the Vivartopadhan, that is the apparent material cause. Now, there are some objections to Brahman causality as well. The world cannot be a modification of Brahman, as this would imply a fundamental change like milk turning into curd, contradicting Brahman's unchangeability. A partial modification would also conflict with Brahman's indivisibility. The only solution being that Brahman is the Vivartopadhan, that is the apparent material cause, just like the Jeev who perceives the dream world, that is the Swapna Sansar, without undergoing any transformation. Now, Praktar's Vivran also says that describes Ishwar as the reflection of Chit, that is the pure consciousness in Maya, Chit from Satchit Anand. Maya is beginningless, indescribable, and the source of inorganic world. In one sense, Maya is the principle of first principles. Now, Vidyaranjan says that Ishwar is the reflection of consciousness in Maya, where Sattva predominates over Rajas and Tamas. His projective power, that is the Vikshev Shakti, restrains Rajas and Tamas, ensuring Ishwara's freedom from ignorance and agitation. Maya, where Sattva dominates, reflects Chit as Ishwar. Avidya, where Rajas and Tamas dominate, reflects Chit as Jeev. Sarvagyatman, however, makes no distinction between Maya and Avidya, and he says that Ishwar is a reflection, that is the Pratibimb Chaitanya, and not the original consciousness. Ishwar is reflection in the Karan Upadhi, that is the causal adjunct, whereas Jeev is the reflection in Karya Upadhi, that is the effectual adjunct. According to Vidyaranjan, the consciousness or the Chit qualified by Maya is Ishwar. He is both the material, that is Upadan, and the efficient limit cause of the world. In his subtle form, he is also known as Sutra Atman or Hiranyagarbh. Sutra Atman is or Hiranyagarbh is the collective jivas in the subtle form. Ishwar is aware of all jivas antakaran. The Ishwar exists in a latent state within him, like objects seen in a twilight. He is conditioned by subtle bodies, that is the Ling Sharir, formed from apanchikrit Mahabhutas. The analogy that has been used is of grain sprouting, that is the whole plant being in the seminal state of the universe. Hiranyagarbh represents the seminal state of the universe. In his gross form, he is known as Virat, that is the manifest universe, and he is described in the Purush Sukta as the cosmic body, that is Vishwataru. He is conditioned by the collective gross bodies made of Panchikrit Mahabhut, that is the grossified elements. Now, there's a debate between amongst Pratibimbadim whether Ishwar is the Bimb Chaitanya or he is the Bimbit Chaitanya. Where the Ishwar is Bimbit Chaitanya, for those who believe that Ishwar is the Bimbit Chaitanya, Ishwar is the reflection of Chit in Maya, while Jeev is a reflection of Chit in Avidya. For those who believe that Ishwar is Bimb Chaitanya, Ishwar is the original consciousness and not the reflection. He remains unaffected while Jeev is a reflection. According to the Bimbit Chaitanya view, the Moola Vidya has two forms. That is, one is Maya, that is the macrocosmic ignorance, and Avidya, which is the individual ignorance. Reflection of consciousness in Maya is Ishwar, and in Avidya it's Jeev. Each Jeev has its own Avidya, there are multiple reflections of consciousness resulting in multiplicity of Jeev. In the Bimb Chaitanya view, where Ishwar is the prototype consciousness, Avidya is singular, as per cited by Appay Dikshit in he cites the Vishnu Puran in his text, meaning it cannot produce multiple reflections. If Ishwar were a reflection, there would be no distinction between Jeev and Ishwar, since both would be reflection of Chit and Avidya. Only one consciousness can be the source. Jeev is the reflection, Pratibimb, and Ishwar is the prototype, the original consciousness. He gives an illustration from Kaltaru wherein he says that a person looking into a mirror sees distortions in the reflection, but the prototype remains unchanged. Similarly, Ishwar is the being that remains free and unaffected, while Jeev are subject to sanskar. Again, the creative aspect of Ishwar is not ordained by any external desire or any external purpose. It is what is known as Swata Sphurtila, that is spontaneous play arising out of its own nature. Ishwar transcends Maya, while Maya is bound by time and karma, but Ishwar remains unaffected by it. While Maya is the medium through which Ishwar's power manifests, he is not conditioned by it, unlike the Jeev. Padacharya also rejects the idea but that both Jeev and Ishwar are reflection. The key distinction being that Jeev is the reflection of Chit in Avidya, that is ignorance, and Ishwar is the original consciousness, Bimb Chaitan, and not a reflection. Also, they say that Chit is one and all pervasive, but Jeev, it is Jeev who experiences limitation. The analogy that they use is of the sun, which is one and universal, but different mirrors reflect it uniquely based on their shape and quality. Similarly, Avidya acts as a mirror reflecting Chit in a distorted way to form individual jivas. The Antakaran emerges from Avidya and conditions jiva's experience just as a mirror provides a location for reflection. The implications of this being that Ishwar remains independent and in control of Maya, unlike Jeev who is trapped in it. Jiva's bondage is due to ignorance, that is avidya, and not an inherent limitation of Chit. Liberation occurs when avidya is removed while allowing the Jeev to recognize its identity with Brahman. Now, can be two critiques. There can be many critiques. I just point out two critiques of Pratibimb. The first one would be that if Ishwar were a mere reflection, that is Pratibimb, he would be no greater than the Jivas, making him powerless. The second issue would be that how can one reflection govern another? If God were just a reflection, he could not liberate Jeev, and he too would be limited. The second set of theory is the Avachedvadan theory on Ishwar. They believe that Brahman is the pure, unconditioned, all-pervasive consciousness, while Ishwar is Brahman conditioned by Maya, it's an entirety. Jeev is consciousness conditioned by adjuncts upadhis, and the collection of jivas is Brahman conditioned by individual parts of Maya. Now, this raises the question that if Maya has many parts, does this imply multiple Mayas? The challenge being that if Brahman becomes Ishwar by being conditioned by Maya, does it change over time? And if Ishwar is just a collection of jivas, does he have a real transcendence, or is he simply a sum of parts, like a forest made of trees? Vachasmati Mishra's alternative is that there are multiple avidyas other than being multiple mayas. Avidya is localized in the individual jivas, not in Brahman or Ishwar. Why does he say that? Because assigning avidya to Brahman would contradict his perfection. Each jiv has its own avidya which disappears upon liberation. If one avidya with many shaktis accounts for multiple jivas, then the liberation of one jiv should weaken the other, should weaken the avidya, but this does not happen. Since Shakti and Shaktiman, the possessor, the power and the possessor of power are non-different, the destruction of a specific Shakti would affect the whole avidya. So multiple avidyas are a simpler solution. Each jiv has its own avidya that gets destroyed individually upon liberation. This preserves Brahman's perfection and avoids the complication of a single avidya with many Shaktis. Now, they believe, the Avachedvadins believe that Ishwar is the object of Maya or the cosmic nasions, while Jeev is the locus of Agyan. The Anupalabdhi Praman allows the Jeev to recognize the absence of perception of perfections in himself, implying that these perfections must somewhere exist. Concerning the relationship between Jeev and Ishwar, as long as nescience persists, the distinction between Jeev and Ishwar remains. Upon liberation, the Jeev attains the status of Ishwar, but true union with Brahmans happens only when all nescience dissolves completely. That is the Salamukti. This aligns with Vachaspati Mishra's Avachedavad view theory, which holds that Jiva's limited power is just a fragment of Ishvara's supreme Shakti. Now, they also mention that God is immanent as the inner ruler, that is the Antaryamin, guiding thoughts and actions of all beings. Ishwar wields nations but is not subject to it, whereas Jivas are bound by it. This distinguishes Avachedvad from Pratibimbat theory, which sees both Jiva and Ishwar as mere reflections of consciousness. Now, the critique of Avachedvad theory, one critique of Avachedvad theory would be that Ishwar is not limited by internal organ, who is not limited by the internal organ, cannot be the inner ruler or the Antaryamin within the Jeev, who is limited by internal organ. Now, coming to one crucial component of consciousness in the Advaita theology, that is Sakshin. Sakshan, the jeev is actually composite of two consciousness. One is the Sakshan consciousness, that is the pure witnessing consciousness, and other is the Karta consciousness or the agent. The jeev integrates both these aspects, experiential engagement and the concept of pure engagement. The nature of Sakshan, as I said, is self-luminous, unchanging presence, self-revealing, beyond object cognition, and also witness form. The antakaran serves as limiting agent of the Sakshi. It enables illumination of external objects through vrittis, modifications of consciousness. The Indriyas serve as intermediaries, but the actual cognition occurs because of illuminating presence of Sakshi. Sakshi is the basis of all knowledge. Uh, I would like to move on to some arguments but from different experiential states concerning for Sakshi. So first set of arguments that could be given concerning Sakshi comes from awake experiences. The sequence of cognition implies a prior witness. Cognition arises only after the internal organ, that is the antakaran, goes out to the object and forms a vritti, that is the, of the form of the object. In this process, the subtle and the gross bodies are vaguely perceived, and post-cognition, the individual says, I am the doer. This indicates that even before the vritti fully forms, a faint awareness of bodily existence exists. Thus, for such pre-vritti cognition to occur, a witness consciousness different from the vritti must exist. Then we do not experience, the second argument could be that we not only experience the vritti, but also its origin, transformation, and cessation. No entity can observe its own being and hence this that which observes these transitions must be distinct from the vritti, and this observer is Sakshi. Then the third argument that could be given from the awake experiences would be even during intense object focused cognition, such as visual perception, there is no doubt about one's existence or the aham pratyaya. This unbroken awareness of selfhood shifts amidst shifting vrittis and implies a continual illumination of individuation, that is the aham pratyaya. That which simultaneously illumines both the object and the unchanging I is the sakshi. Also, during meditation, when you meditate on a particular object, say the idol of Lord Ram, there's a continuous stream of vrittis about the same object. Despite apparent and temporal separation between vrittis and I, we later say that I saw the idol of Lord Ram. This continuity of experience implies that a stream of individuation, that is aham pratyaya, must run contemporaneously with the stream of object cognition. If they were entirely disjointed, such a unified recollection wouldn't be possible. Therefore, a unifying substratum or witness must exist, and that witness is Sakshi. The other set of arguments could be given from dream experiences. In the dream state, the gross body and the external world are inactive. All sensory contact is suspended. Yet we vividly experience a world constructed internally by the antakaran in association with the jeev. Within this internal creation, the subject, that is the enjoyer, or the object, that is the enjoyed, arise as dual constructs, and both are unreal. Dream experiences are entirely illusory, including the sense of self or anxiety that exists there, that is the I-ness or the idant, the uniqueness, I-ness in the dream. Unlike waking illusions, the example, mistaking a rope for a snake, which require a real substrate, for example, the rope, dream illusions do not rest on an external empirical substrate. This raises the question, what is the locus of these dream illusions? Is it the senses? No, because they are inactive during sleep. Is it the mind? No, because the mind merely generates the illusion. And also, for the mind to work, it needs an external contact with the reality. It needs to form a vritti. So is the jeev the possible locus of these dream experiences? No, because if the jeev were the locus, the illusion would be identified with the locus, and one would say that I am the snake in the snake illusion. So therefore, there must be a sakshi that illumines the experiences of the dream state.
10 minutes.
So in the deep sleep, sushupti, after coming out from the sleep, we say that I slept well, I did not know anything. So this implies two implications. First is the positive recognition of having slept, and one is the negative recognition of the absence of any experience. Now, recollection demands a prior cognition. Since no mental operation function in deep sleep, who or what cognizes the absence of cognition? So there must be an immutable cognition, immutable witness that is the witness of the deep sleep. Then coming from other set of arguments could be given from internal states of mind. Emotional states are not physical objects, they are known. These are vrittis, mental modifications in the antakaran. However, antakaran is insentient or the jad padarth and it cannot reveal or illuminate itself. Just as a mirror reflects light, but it does not emit it, the mind receives and transmits but does not originate consciousness. The insight could be that there are two aspects involved in any such internal state, such as happiness or sadness. One is the experience itself, and other is the awareness of experience. The knower of happiness cannot be happiness itself. Therefore, there must be a witness who stands apart, observing these inner states without undergoing them. The last set of arguments could be given, that is given by Gyan path, based on erroneous perception. In illusion, for example, this is a snake, which we later correct to this is a rope. The object changes, but the thisness or the hexity or the idant remains same across both the perceptions. If this thisness were a part of the rope, it would be unknown when the rope is unknown, but it is still known. Therefore, something must illumine the thisness or this even when the object is misperceived or unknown. Illusory objects are personal projections, yet they still appear as known. This demands a conscious base. That conscious base is Sakshi. Now, the Upanishads say that the reality is one. So, how if the reality is one, how does the world of multiplicity of jivas come up? So, it is said that some Shankara's response is that there are no individual jivas distinct from Ishwar, and the illusion of jiv arises due to Maya, which projects and conceals. Maya is also the false. Maya causes the false perception of separate individuals, just as one space seems divided into jars or pots, ghatakash, patakash. And this is revert the apparent transformation, a false superimposition on the unchanging reality. Why do we see jivas as different? Because of the mind and body, which serve as upadhis and create the illusion of individual souls. Just as the same sky appears to be different when covered by clouds, pure consciousness seems divided into separate beings due to Maya. Due to ignorance, that is avidya, people fail to see Ishwar and Jeev as ultimately being one. Self-realization removes this false distinction. Now, Jeev can also be called as Vijnana Atman, the empirical self, which is changing, limited self, identifying with memories, emotions, and desires. It is always connected to consciousness, even though its form changes. Now, liberation or moksha occurs when this individual, false individuality dissolves through self-knowledge. Even the jeev appears in deep sleep or death, its connection with consciousness remains as sakshi. Upon waking or rebirth, latent consciousness reactivates. So, why does the jeev persist? Because the cycle of causes and effect ensures that jiva's individual latent tendencies or vasanas reawaken in new birth. So now also, not only do they have Jeev Sakshin, they also have an Ishwar Sakshin, or they follow a dual witnessing model, whereby you also have an Ishwar Sakshin. And Ishwar, comparing these two concepts, Ishwar and Ishwar Sakshin, Ishwar is when Maya qualifies consciousness, it becomes Ishwar, the creator, sustainer, and ruler of the world, of the universe. When Ishwar comes as Ishwar Sakshin, or the divine witness, it is when Maya limits universal consciousness, it becomes Ishwar Sakshin, the passive observer of creation. While Ishwar engages in cosmic order, Ishwar Sakshin remains the silent witness. The key difference between Ishwar and Jeev Sakshin and Ishwar Sakshin would be that Jeev Sakshin are multiple because they are limited by individual antakaran. The Ishwar Sakshin is singular because it is limited by Maya, its limiting condition. So Advait provides a first person account of consciousness manifesting at empirical and transcendental level. It bridges the personal and impersonal aspects of divinity, showing a unified vision of consciousness. Ishwar is immanent principle, while Brahman is the transcendental principle, and creation of the world is not ex nihilo. God comes as the creator, and God manifests in two forms, one as the creator form and one as the witness form, which we've already discussed. I would like to end this talk with a few questions that I do not have answers to. In Sushupti or deep sleep, where do vasanas or latent tendencies reside, and from where do they re-emerge upon awakening? The second question would be, does Sakshin consciousness imply a pre-Qualia awareness where consciousness simply is
Yes.
rather than consciousness of something or consciousness as something. Is it possible to empirically investigate or validate Sakshan consciousness, which is by definition non-phenomenal or beyond subject-object duality? And also one question that could be asked is Sakshan the self-referential consciousness? Because it does not have an extroverted referentiality or extroverted intentionality. There is one last thought experiment that I would like to leave you with, and that is G network thought experiment. It's inspired from the Chinese nation thought experiment. Imagine a vast planetary network composed of all sentient beings, humans, animals, and other jivas in the universe. Each being is an autonomous conscious agent with their own individual stream of experience. Now, suppose that for a brief moment in cosmic time, every jeev experiences a conscious state of experiences one single conscious state, and let's call that X. This could be an emotion or a perceptual state or a metaphysical intuition, anything. The question that I want to raise is if God is constituted by the set of all jivas and all jivas simultaneously experience X, does it follow that God also experiences X? Uh, if every unit in the whole question being or the gist being that if every unit in a system experiences something identically and simultaneously, can we say that the system itself has that experience? Thank you.